Hi everyone, it's me Terry from the Yarn Joy podcast. I'm just coming on here because there is a holiday traditions tag videos that are going around, and I did get tagged by I think 2 or 3 people. So I'm going to go through these 15 questions and then I will tag a few people at the end. Hopefully they haven't been tagged yet. But of course, anybody that wants to do it, feel free. It's always fun to hear people's answers to their questions. Okay, so question number 1, I'm going to read down here. I have them on my phone here. Okay, so question number 1 is, when do you start decorating for Christmas? Okay, well, as you see, I still have my fall wall hanging back there. I have not decorated for Christmas yet, and it is already December something. What's today? The 4th, December the 4th. I'd like to wish my father-in-law a happy birthday today. Okay, so usually, it's always after Thanksgiving, of course, and after usually the first week of Christmas, something like that. I'm probably going to be doing that toward the end of this week, probably getting the Christmas tree out and doing all that. So, okay, so what style, number 2 is, what style do you decorate in? Okay, well, I don't have much of a style, not really a theme, just traditional, I guess you'd say. The ornaments that I like to put on the tree, there's no color theme. I've always felt like the tree and the decorating was for my kids, and so I like to have on my tree ornaments that have like ones that we bought like when they were born, like baby's first Christmas. I have both of those for both of my sons. And then I have handmade ornaments, some that I made the first year that I was married, to put on our very first Christmas tree. So I still have those. Not all of them, but most of them I have them. Those were those like the sun catchers kits that you could get that are like the metal or wire shape, and you put it on a baking sheet with the little pieces of plastic that you melt in the different sections that are different colors, like to make them look stained glass. I did a set of those, and I did a couple of little cross stitch pictures that I put the date on, and it was for our first Christmas when we got married in 1987. And then, of course, then we started having kids. Then I had my kids make Christmas ornaments for themselves, so then I could have a representation of when they were little and their crafting skills. So I have things like that. Last year I made quite a few crocheted ornaments that I made for the tree, and so I actually haven't made any yet for myself. I've made some ornaments for other people, but I haven't made any for myself, so I need to go ahead and make a few that I can add to my collection for this year. But that's really it. I much rather prefer to have ornaments that have a sentimental value to them than having a theme of a certain color or a certain style. That's just the way I am. Okay, so number 3 says the favorite Christmas tradition with the family. Okay, so I have the main tradition that I can remember when I was a child. A lot of people have come on here and said that was their tradition too, was the fact that my dad would get us all in the car and we would drive around town looking at Christmas lights, the Christmas decorations at night before Christmas. And so that we pretty much continued on doing that. Of course, now that when both our kids, well, my older son is grown, and my youngest, my second, and I have 2 boys. Okay, so and they're pretty far apart in age. They're 12 years apart in age. So my youngest is 16, my oldest is 28. Yeah. So anyway, of course, the 28-year-old is married and out of the house. The 16-year-old, he's kind of he has kind of grown out of liking to do traditions like that. So, but we still do try to drive around a little bit during the Christmas season and look at Christmas lights. So anyway, that was a tradition that I enjoyed doing, besides watching the different Christmas programs that come on TV, but I'll talk about that in another question. Okay, so now question number 4 is favorite place to buy Christmas decor. Okay, well, I don't buy Christmas decor that much unless it's like after Christmas sale, and I'll find a few little items that I want to get. But my mother-in-law is a big shopper. She loves to shop, and she loves to buy Christmas decorations, and so she usually buys, when she buys them, she will buy me some, and then of course her other daughter-in-law, and you know, like the kids and the grandkids, their families, she likes to buy decorations for them. So I get good supply of things to decorate my house with from her. So I don't usually, I'd rather make them. Like last year or this past year, I've made a few Christmas amigurumis to set out and stuff like that. I like to I handmade make things more than I buy them. So let's see. Favorite Christmas movie. Okay, well, I would say this has kind of become a tradition just for me. I usually do it by myself. I don't really usually have many that want to come watch it with me, or I do it at an inopportune time that I'm by myself to do it. But I always like to start this Christmas season with watching Miracle on 34th Street. And this is the older version with Natalie Wood in it. In fact, I watched it the other night. And of course, in that movie, it starts with Thanksgiving, and then it goes into Christmas. And so I always like to start the Christmas season off with that movie. And like I said, I just watched it a couple of days ago. And of course, another favorite Christmas movie of mine is the It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. I haven't watched it yet this year, but I intend to. I have it on DVD, and of course it's all over. Usually you can catch it on TV as well, or on demand. And of course now, favorite show, Christmas movie, I guess you'd call them movies, shows from my childhood, of course, was the kids. I guess my very favorite was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, all the little claymation movies, remember those? Frosty the Snowman, the first, I think they've got a part 2 now, Frosty Returns or something, but I remember the original with the cartoon one. And of course well, thinking back at Thanksgiving, the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, and then the Charlie Brown Christmas movies as well. And those have a special memory to me because my father, he loved those. And when my sons were small, he would always call me, because we live in a different city than where they were living, and he would always call me when it would come on, mainly because when we were kids, okay, so when we were kids, they came on like once a year, and if you missed it, you missed it. And so it was a big deal to make sure that you got to see those holiday Peanuts programs, because if you missed it, you couldn't like pop in the DVD or the VHS of that show and watch it. So if you missed it, you had to wait a whole entire year to see it again. Also lumped in with that is the Wizard of Oz movie as well, Judy Garland. And so it was always a tradition that my grandfather, when we were little, he would call us to make sure that we knew that Charlie Brown was on TV, so then the kids could get in there and watch it. Well, then that kind of continued on with my father. And when I was married and my kids were small, he would call us and let us know that Charlie Brown was on TV, and he would say, get them boys in there and let them watch it because it's coming on, you know. And I guess he didn't realize that at that time, by then, you could get it on DVD. Well, back then it was VHS tape, but you could watch it anytime. But it was always kind of a fun thing to, you know, have my dad call, and he said, get those boys in there and let y'all turn that on and watch it, you know. And I lost my father in 2016. He passed away. and don't want to start crying, but I miss I miss him a lot, and I always think of him. In fact, when the other night Charlie Brown Thanksgiving was on, my husband and I watched it together. My son was gone doing something, and so we sat and we watched it together because that was a particular favorite of my dad's, and so that way I could think of my dad during that time. I remember him during that time, and we had a laugh at different things that he had did when he was alive, and we would get a kick out of. So we just kind of reminisced. So anyway, those Christmas shows are special to me. Okay, going on. Number 6 is eggnog, hot cocoa, or apple cider. Well, if I have to pick from those 3, I would say hot cocoa, because I don't like eggnog. And apple cider is okay, but it's really extra sweet. And so, of course, hot cocoa can be that way too. Really, of the 3, I would pick hot cocoa if I had only those 3. But really, it would be probably coffee, or and maybe there's some coffee though that I reserve for the Christmas season. Like my local grocery store, they put out a Christmas flavored coffees. It's called Christmas themed coffee flavors. There you go. And there's a couple of them that I especially like, and they only come out during this time of the year. So it was like, there's one, I can't remember their names for it, but the flavor is a chocolate mint, kind of like the Andes mints. That's really good that I like. There's a caramel one that's called pan dulce, which here is in Spanish. That means a sweet bread, and it's a caramel flavor. And then there's another one called Christmas in a Cup that's extra good. And so I always, when they have those after Christmas, if they have some marked down, I'll try to get several boxes of them and stretch them out through the year, because I like those especially well. And I am getting on to drinking different types of teas as well. Okay, number 7 is, do you leave out cookies for Santa, and if so, what kind? We never did that. When I was a child, I never grew up believing in Santa. We just didn't do that much. My grandmother, she used to have extra presents under the tree, and she would always put from Santa, but we always knew that it was from her. So really, Santa was kind of like a symbol for Christmas, I guess, like the Easter bunny for Easter, whatever. The non-Christian symbol, of course. But besides that, no, we didn't leave cookies out for Santa. So we just didn't do that. Number 8, real or artificial tree. When I was a kid, we had real tree. We always had real trees. My grandmother always had real trees until I got probably into college or grown, and then they started getting an artificial tree. And even my grandmother kind of got on to doing that a little bit. Last few years of her life, she was using artificial trees. Besides that, now that I'm married, we've always had artificial tree. My husband has allergies to cedar and that whatnot, and so I just don't think that would go well. And in fact, we all kind of have allergy sensitive noses to stuff like that, so we've always had artificial tree. Okay, number 9 is favorite holiday dessert. Well, let's see. My grandmother used to make these refrigerator cookies. Well, I don't know what they were called. We just call them refrigerator cookies because you had to make the dough, and then you put the dough in the refrigerator, shape it into logs, and then slice them and cook them, after you have them in the refrigerator overnight, I guess. And they were extra good, and she always made them just then at Christmas. And I do remember, I'll tell you this story though. A friend of my mother's, she had a big sweet tooth, and she really liked to make lots of desserts. So every year there was a tradition that she would make several different types of Christmas cookies, and she would fix them up on plates and give out as gifts to her friends. And so she would always bring us a plate of those cookies every year, and there was several cookies on there that I especially liked. My 2 favorites, I guess, was the peanut blossoms, the ones that were like the peanut butter cookies that had the chocolate kiss pressed down in the middle of it. I liked those really well. And then she also made some sugar cookies that she cut out into different shapes, and she would ice them, and they were super good too. And so she has since moved to Wisconsin. And so the first few years that she lived up there, she actually mailed us some of those cookies, but she's gotten away from doing that now. But anyway, those were my favorite cookies, I guess you'd say. I'll just sneak this in. My grandmother, besides the refrigerator cookies, every year she would make what she called TV trash. And of course now it's the Chex Mix, and you can buy them in bags. But back then you had to make them, mix all the ingredients up together and make them yourself, and she called it TV trash. And she would save the metal coffee cans, the containers, and she would fill them with the TV trash, and she would wrap them and give them as gifts. Plus, she also would make peanut brittle, and she would make it by hand on the stove. No, she didn't have a microwave or anything, and she would make it by hand on the stove, and she would make lots and lots of peanut brittle for people. So that's a memory that I have, because she'd put them in those coffee cans that she would save, like the Folgers and the Maxwell House coffee cans back when they were metal or steel cans. Anyway, so that's another memory I have of Christmas cookie or Christmas foods, I guess you'd say. Okay, number 10. Oh, it says favorite Christmas cookie. Well, I just answered it. It was those sugar cookies from that friend of my mom's, and the cookies that my grandmother used to make, the refrigerator cookies. So I just answered that question. Okay, next one is, let's see, number 11. Okay, do you open gifts on Christmas Eve? Yes, we've always opened gifts on Christmas Eve. That came from my father's mother, so my paternal grandmother, and it was always that way with the tradition in the family. I don't know where that really came from. There's quite a bit of a German background on that side of the family, so I don't know if that's a German kind of family tradition or what. I don't know. But we always open presents on Christmas Eve. In the evening, we'd all get together, and we'd have finger foods, and the Christmas tree would be loaded with Christmas gifts, because at that time, well, my mom and dad were both only children, so I don't have any aunts and uncles. Yeah, I didn't have any aunts and uncles, didn't have any first cousins. But my grandmother was from a big family. She had quite a few brothers and sisters, and so I had quite a few great aunts and great uncles, okay? And so there was always lots of presents under the tree. In fact, my brothers and I have two brothers. We were pretty much the only children in the family at that time that would go to these Christmas parties. A lot of my great aunts and uncles, they only had maybe one child or no children, or their children were grown and not local anymore. And so anyway, I remember that, and we would all open presents on Christmas Eve. But further in that tradition is, like I said, we'd all get together around dinner time in the evening, and we would have sandwiches and finger foods and that sort of thing, and dips and chips and that whatnot. And of course the kids were all anxious. We were anxious to open the Christmas presents, and they would always make us, because after we'd eat, and then my grandmother and some of the aunts, they would go in there and they'd do the dishes and clean up the kitchen, and we would have to wait until they did that before we could open the Christmas gifts. So I remember we were really anxious about that. Anyway, so, and then on Christmas Day, the next day, we would get together, and usually one of the aunts or my great aunts or my grandmother, it would be at their house, and we would all get together the next day on Christmas Day for lunch and eat a big meal, just like it was Thanksgiving. Usually it's the same food that we had, same type of food that we had on Thanksgiving. We would do it on Christmas Day for lunch. And then we would go home in the afternoon, play with our new Christmas toys and things, and then for dinner we would go back to their house and eat leftovers of what was left. So a lot of times we would do that, or we would take food home with us, something like that. But anyway, that's our explanation of how we did it in my family. Now that I'm married, my husband, they always did Christmas open Christmas presents, usually on, well, they come from, a lot of them was a Catholic background, and so they would go to Christmas Mass on Christmas Eve, and then after they would get home, right after midnight, then they would open their Christmas gifts. Now it's just kind of like everybody's grown, and so they pretty much, now that we're married, we pretty much do what my family did. We open Christmas presents on Christmas Eve, get together the next day on Christmas Day for a big meal, and then with my husband's side of the family, a lot of times we will get together, not with all of them, but until after Christmas, like a week or so after Christmas, or New Year's, that weekend, or whatever. And then we have our meal with them and exchange gifts at that time. So it was always after Christmas, usually. Okay, so that's how we do it. Okay, and it says, number 12, do you decorate your Christmas tree yourself? Well, now that my kids are grown, I do a lot of the decorating myself. Before, when they were kids, we would put the Christmas tree up, put the lights on it, and then I pretty much let the kids put the decorations on the tree. I might go back later and rearrange them just a little bit. If they had like all the red ornaments together and all the blue ornaments together, I'd kind of mix them up a little bit. But we just kind of decorate together, usually me and whatever kid is home. Let's see. And I just said, number 13, it says, where do you spend Christmas Day? I just said that. We usually, well, when I was a kid, we would go to my grandmother's house, or my aunt, whoever decided to host it that year, and we would eat a big meal just like Thanksgiving. Now, there's not a whole lot of my family left. So last year I hosted Christmas Eve here at my house, and then the next day we ate lunch here, but it was just a small group of us, and probably this year it will be that way too. So I think I'm kind of, it's got kind of, the hosting is kind of moved on to me now. So so that's it, really. Okay, favorite Christmas smell? I would say cinnamon. I'm not big on apple cinnamon, but just cinnamon or gingerbread. Oh, that smell is so good. What else? What is your favorite thing to craft or make during the holidays? Well, I make all kinds of things because I'm usually busy trying to make items for Christmas gifts at last minute, and so it could be really anything really. Okay, so that is the questions. That's the 15 questions for the Christmas tags. I hope you enjoyed my answers, getting to know me a little bit. And I'm going to tag, I have, let's see, I have 4 people. I don't know if they've been tagged, but I'm going to tag them nonetheless. So I'm going to tag Denise at Dear Designs. I tag you. And I'm tagging Sonia Jones at Sonia Jones Crafty Life. And then I also want to tag Zoe of 24 Karat Crochet and Kendra of Hooked by Happenstance. Now, some of these, I'm not sure if they've, I don't know. Well, some of them, I think they watch my videos. I hope. Some of them I don't know. So hopefully they'll get the message out. If not, if you're in contact with them, then let them know that they've been tagged to do these questions. Okay, so I guess that's it for the day. For today, I'm going to be back in a couple of days for my regular episode of the Yarn Joy podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And thank you so much to my subscribers that have subscribed. And I hope you're having a great week. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.